During his time, he has made Monlam Tibetan font available for computers, both PC and Mac, and he invented that. And more recently, he has worked with a university in Japan to make the Tibetan keyboard available on the iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, you upgrade your iPhone to 4.0 version, you have built-in Tibetan keyboard inside your phone. He also just recently debuted his Monlam Tibetan Digital Dictionary. So here is the man, and I will leave it to Monlam to give us an introduction of some of the work that he has been doing. Thank you. I'll just introduce what Monlam is in a very brief manner. My main goal for making this software was that the Tibetan language plays a really important role in our culture, which is actually founded and based on our language. And without our language, when our language gets marginalized and threatened, it poses a serious threat to our entire culture and identity. And in order to preserve what we have in terms of our heritage and culture and nationhood and identity, I realized that language is really important, and in order to be able to preserve our language, I wanted to make this software. So I made 6 different versions of Monlam.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to make sure that we did this work and made the software in a way that would make Tibetan be able to march alongside the other modern languages of today's world. And that's why I focused on 4 key pillars of the language. First is the letters. Second is the sound of the language. The third being the words, and the fourth being the structure, the grammar.
Yeah.
It doesn't really need translation, actually. So now I get a lot of pressure. Monlam version 1, version 2, version 3. Version 3.1.
And
I made about 13 different versions of the software, and especially many of the fonts being Unicode, you can actually use them in different kinds of other software, including some of the design software like Photoshop. So you can also use Monlam in those cases. And this is the font of the. You have all these different kinds of fonts. And the cube is a little bit harder to read. He didn't say that. And you can use them, use this on Windows, Mac, iPad, iPhone, and as many as possible, whatever gadgets are out there, we want to make it happen on those too. So this is actually a manual that was written by someone called Sonam Tsemo 700 years ago. So this manual is very, very old, and now it includes, each of the letter has 9 different kinds of facts about them, and in order to make this this facility available, there were about 70-something people involved in this project. So we don't really have the time to go through some of this description, but actually if we were able to do this another time, this would actually be a very, very interesting kind of discussion, because the Tibetan letters in our alphabet, the way they are arranged in the beginning by Tumisamura was actually a very, very systematic logic to this whole thing. The arrangement of the letters based on the strength of the sound, and also on the strength of the aspiration of those letters coming out of your mouth, you know. So there is such a logical kind of system behind the structure of our letters. And we have actually made this structure very visual in this software. So we have arranged these different kinds of combination of letters and the sounds that they make in such a way that anyone can really use this for a lot of different and also basic purposes. And the last one also includes, you know, 600 different words that come with the honorifics. So for a lot of people who are having difficulty speaking in honorifics, I think they can really use this tool to brush up on their honorifics. So some of the different kinds of facilities included in this program includes the way you combine letters to make words, and the way you actually use them, and then also it includes some ways in which, if you are doing public speaking, then how you would use certain words in a different way. So this one is only in Tibetan right now, but we have translated this into English and Chinese and Japanese also. So in the next version that's coming out, all those languages will be there too. And especially for people who are, you know, non-native Tibetan speakers, those who are learning Tibetan, this manual is actually very, very reliable because it has been made in collaboration with many experts on the Tibetan language. Because there are some people out there who have made their own improvised homemade systems, but sometimes they are not the most reliable. And the Monlam digital dictionary was launched 2 weeks ago.
And it's usually now an index, Tanyan Boom is yet, and you get to have a Zinasaya to last years.
You get to have a Zinasaya to index and 2 lakhs.
200,000.
200,000, yeah. This is where my Indian education comes in. 200,000 entries are in that dictionary, and 6 million words. Yeah, 6 million. So there are many different layers to this dictionary. You can, you know, highlight a certain word within the dictionary, within the meaning, and you can find further meaning to that word within the meaning. And then if you also want to translate that word into English, you can have the same thing with Control E. And then for an English word, you can also go back to Tibetan. So for those whose English is not very good, you can actually get the whole meanings in Tibetan. If your Tibetan is not that good, you can find the meaning in English. So because of the different functions built into this dictionary, for some of the terminology, if you don't have the English version but you know the Chinese version, you can look for the Tibetan equivalent for that Chinese term, and you can find the definition. And for others, sometimes you want to type in English words if there is no Chinese word or equivalent to that, and then you can also get the same Tibetan meaning through the English. So while you're, basically any program that you're using in your computer, anything that is related to text, you can actually get to the same dictionary and then find the English meaning or the Tibetan meanings for any word. So that's a rough introduction to the Monlam digital dictionary, and this was the first version, and we'll be working on the second version. And in the second version, actually, we'll have all the entries, all the words in that version, and also that'll include spell check. So while you're writing, you know, any kind of spelling mistakes you make will be automatically corrected by that machine.
And